I won $3 million in the lottery, and my parents demanded I give half to my brother or get out. I refused. The next day, before moving out, I found them shredding my lottery ticket out of an VA and I couldn't stop laughing a broken bar because that ticket was already cashed. My name is Peter, and for as long as I can remember, I've lived in the shadow of my brother, Nicholas. It's not something I like to admit, but it's the truth. My parents, Andrea and Mauricio, have always had a favorite, and that favorite has never been me. Don't get me wrong, I'm not looking for pity. I just want to tell my story, because what happened to me recently changed everything, and I need to get it off my chest. I grew up in a modest house in a quiet neighborhood. We were a middle-class family with a roof over our heads and food on the table, but there was always a clear difference in how my parents treated Nicholas and me. From a young age, Nicholas was the golden child, the one who always received the praise. If he got a good grade, my mother would hang his report card on the fridge as if it were a work of art. If I got an equal or better grade, I'd barely get a "well done" and a change of subject. If Nicholas wanted a new toy, my parents would go out of their way to get it for him. If I asked for something, they told me it wasn't in the budget or that I had to learn to earn it. It wasn't just about material things. The preference for Nicholas was noticeable in everything. When it was time to think about college, my parents didn't hesitate to pay for Nicholas's tuition at a private university, one of the best in the country. It's an investment in his future, my dad, Mauricio, would say while my mom, Andrea, nodded with pride. Nicholas wanted to study business administration, and my parents saw him as the family's next great entrepreneur. I, on the other hand, had to fend for myself. I wanted to study engineering, but when I asked them for help, they looked at me as if I'd asked for the moon. "We can't afford it, Peter. You have to look for a scholarship," my mom told me in a tone that allowed no argument. So I worked. During the day, I waited tables at a restaurant, and at night, I studied like crazy to keep my grades up and not lose the partial scholarship I managed to get. Still, it wasn't enough. I ended up taking out student loans that left me with a debt that, even today, years later, weighs on me like a ton of bricks. Meanwhile, Nicholas lived a carefree life, with his expenses covered and plenty of time to go out with friends or travel on vacation. I barely had time to sleep. I don't want to sound like I've always been resentful, but it's hard not to feel a knot in your stomach when you see your own parents treat you as if you're less. I tried talking to them a couple of times, asking why there was such a difference. "It's not that we loved you less, Peter," my mom would say. "It's just that Nicholas needs more support. You're strong, you can handle it on your own." But those words, instead of comforting me, made me feel even more alone. Why did I have to be the strong one? Why couldn't I receive the same love, the same support? Despite everything, I pushed forward. I graduated with a degree in engineering with good grades, albeit with a debt that would haunt me for years. I got a decent job as a junior engineer at a construction company, but my salary was barely enough to cover my loan payments, the rent my parents charged me to live at home, and my basic expenses. Yes, I was still living with them, not because I wanted to, but because I couldn't afford my own place. My parents charged me rent to live at home, something Nicholas never had to pay. "You're working, Peter. It's only fair that you contribute," they'd say. Meanwhile, Nicholas, who had already graduated, was still living at home without paying a cent. Then came the time when Nicholas decided to start his own business. He wanted to open an urban clothing store, something modern and cool, according to him. My parents didn't hesitate to support him. They took out all their savings, the ones that supposedly didn't exist when I asked for help with college, and gave them to Nicholas to rent a space, buy merchandise, and hire staff. "It's a great opportunity for him," my dad would say. "Nicholas has vision. He's going to go far." I watched them in silence, wondering how they could be so blind. Nicholas had no experience, hadn't made a solid business plan, and his idea seemed more like a whim than a serious project. A year earlier, I had also tried to start a business. I had an idea for a small engineering consulting firm, something that could grow over time. I asked my parents for a small loan to get started, no more than what they spent in a month on Nicholas's outings. Their answer was a firm number. "We don't see a future in it, Peter," My mom told me, "That sounds too risky. You're better off sticking with your job." It hurt, not just because of the refusal, but because they didn't even bother to listen to my plan. To them, my dreams weren't worth it. Meanwhile, I had a habit that, I admit, wasn't the most sensible. I bought lottery tickets. It started as a silly thing, a way to dream of something better. Every week I would spend a few dollars on a ticket, imagining that maybe, just maybe, luck would smile on me. It was my little escape, my way of holding on to the hope that one day I could get out of the hole I was in. My parents and Nicholas made fun of me for it. "You're throwing your money away, Peter," Nicholas would say with a chuckle. "The lottery is for losers." I didn't respond, just kept my tickets in a drawer and went on with my life. Months passed, and Nicholas's business began to falter. I wasn't surprised. I had seen how he handled things, spending more than he earned, hiring friends who knew nothing about business, and making impulsive decisions. Soon, the debts piled up, and my parents, who had invested everything in him, started to worry. I, meanwhile, kept working, paying my student debt and the rent for the house, without anyone asking me how I was or if I needed anything, until one day, everything changed. It was a Friday night. As always, I stopped by the corner store and bought a lottery ticket. I didn't have high expectations, but I liked to check the numbers, imagining that maybe for once, life would give me a chance. That night, sitting in my room, I turned on the TV and watched the live drawing. The numbers started coming out one by one, and something inside me stopped. 7, 14, 23, 42, the same numbers I had on my ticket. At first, I thought I was dreaming. I checked the ticket over and over, carefully comparing each number. There was no mistake. I had won $3 million. I didn't scream. I didn't jump. I didn't do anything. I just sat on my bed staring at the ticket, feeling a mix of disbelief and euphoria. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was in control, but I also knew I couldn't tell anyone. Not yet. My parents and Nicholas were not trustworthy, and I didn't want them to find out until the money was safely in my account. The next day, I went to the lottery office to validate my ticket. It was all real. The employees congratulated me. They explained that the payment would take between 15 and 30 days to reach my bank account and gave me one of those giant symbolic checks they use for photos. It was huge, with my name and the amount of $3 million written in large letters. We did a photo shoot. I smiled for the cameras, and I went home with the check under my arm, still processing what was happening. When I got home, my parents and Nicholas were in the living room. Seeing me with the giant check, their eyes widened like saucers. "What is that, Peter?" my mom asked with a mix of curiosity and suspicion. I took a second before answering, knowing that what I would say would change everything. "I won the lottery," I said, trying to stay calm. $3 million. The silence that followed was deafening. Then, Nicholas let out a nervous laugh. "You, seriously, Peter?" My parents didn't laugh. They looked at me as if I had just confessed a crime. "It's true," I said, holding up the symbolic check. And then all hell broke loose. My mom was the first to speak. "Peter, this is a blessing for the family. You have to share it with us. Nicholas needs that money. His business is in trouble. He has debts to pay. If you give him half, he can save it and get ahead." I stared at her, incredulous. Half, after everything they had done, or rather, not done for me. Nicholas nodded as if it were the most logical thing in the world. "Yeah, Peter, it's only fair. We're family. You can't keep all that for yourself." I felt a laugh rise in my throat, but I held it back. "Fair," I said, looking at the three of them. "Since when do you care about what's fair? You never supported me in anything. You didn't pay for my college. You let me go into debt up to my neck. You didn't give me a cent for my business idea, but you gave Nicholas everything he asked for. And now that I win something on my own, you want half." "No, I'm not giving you anything." The atmosphere grew tense. My dad, who had been quiet until then, took a step forward. "Peter, don't be selfish. If you don't give half to your brother, you're getting out of this house. We don't want ungrateful people here." I don't know where I found the composure, but I did. "Perfect," I said. "I'm leaving. And don't worry, I don't plan on speaking to you again. You never supported me, never believed in me. Now that I have something, suddenly I'm part of this family. No, thanks. The argument that followed was a whirlwind. I threw everything in their faces. How they paid for Nicholas's university while I worked endless shifts. How they gave him all their savings for a business that was now failing. How they charged me rent while Nicholas lived for free. It was always him, wasn't it? I shouted at them. It was always Nicholas who was important, the one who was worth it. I was just the one who had to be strong, the one who had to manage on his own. Well, now I have, and I'm not sharing it with you. My mom tried to interrupt, saying I was exaggerating, that they just wanted what was best for everyone. Nicholas, for his part, called me envious. He said I had always been jealous of him. I didn't answer. It wasn't worth it. I went up to my room, left the symbolic check on my desk, and locked myself in to plan my exit. I wasn't going to stay another day in that house. I woke up early, determined to start looking for a place. Before going down to the kitchen, I realized the check wasn't on my desk. I went downstairs, but when I reached the living room, I stopped dead in my tracks. There were my parents and Nicholas, sitting around the dining room table with the symbolic check in the middle. It wasn't whole, it was destroyed. The pieces of cardboard were scattered across the table, some torn into strips, others crumpled. My mom held a piece in her hand, and Nicholas had a pair of scissors. My dad, with a hard expression, looked at me as if to challenge me. For a second, I felt a pang of panic. What had they done? My parents and Nicholas looked at me and said, "We warned you, Peter. Since you didn't want to share, we decided to rip up your check. Now you have nothing. What are you going to do without your little money?" Out of envy, Nicholas blurted out, brandishing the scissors like a trophy. And then, I don't know how, a laugh started to build in my chest. I tried to contain it, but I couldn't. I started laughing my head off, so hard I almost ran out of breath. My parents and Nicholas looked at me as if I had gone mad. "What are you laughing at?" my dad growled, clearly annoyed. "Do you think this is funny?" My laughter grew louder. I couldn't stop. Tears were streaming down my face, and I had to lean against the wall to keep from falling. Nicholas's face went from arrogance to confusion, and my parents looked at each other as if they didn't understand what was happening. "Why are you laughing?" my mom screamed, throwing down the piece of cardboard she was holding. "We just destroyed your prize. Don't you get it? You're not going to collect anything." I wiped away my tears and tried to calm down, though my body was still shaking with laughter. "That check," I said, pointing to the pieces on the table. "That check is worthless. It's a symbolic check. A piece of cardboard they gave me for the photos. The real money is being processed and will be in my account in less than 15 days. Did you really think you could ruin me by tearing up a piece of paper?" The silence that followed was glorious. The three of them turned pale as if all the blood had been drained from their bodies. Nicholas dropped the scissors, and my dad opened his mouth, but no words came out. My mom was the first to react, though her voice trembled. "Peter, that was a joke. We didn't mean it. We just wanted to teach you a lesson." A lesson? After everything they had done to me, my laughter stopped, and I felt a wave of rage rise in my chest. "A lesson," I said, taking a step toward them. "What kind of lesson?" "That I've never been anything to you. That all that matters is Nicholas and his damn business that's good for nothing." "No, Mom, this wasn't a joke. This was pure venom. Pure spite." "But you know what? I don't care. I'm leaving this house, and I'm not looking back." Nicholas stood up from his chair with an expression that was a mix of panic and desperation. "Peter, wait, don't take it like that. We're family. You know my business is in trouble. If you give me some of that money, I can save it." "Don't be selfish, man." "Selfish?" I spat, feeling the rage burn inside me. "I'm selfish. After you left me alone with my college debts, after you charged me rent to live in this house while you lived for free, after Mom and Dad gave you everything you asked for and gave me crumbs." "No, Nicholas, I owe you nothing. Not to you, and not to them." My dad tried to intervene with that authoritarian tone he used when he wanted to impose his will. "Peter, calm down. We're your parents, and Nicholas is your brother. You can't turn your back on your family. That money is a blessing, and you have to share it." "It's not a blessing for you," I said, cutting him off. "It's my blessing. I bought that lottery ticket. I won it." "You used to make fun of me for buying tickets, remember? You said I was a loser, that I was throwing my money away." "Well, look who's laughing now." I didn't give them time to respond. I went up to my room, grabbed my backpack, and started packing the essentials: clothes, my laptop, some important documents. I didn't need much. I had lived with the bare minimum my whole life, so it wasn't hard to decide what to take. As I stuffed my things into the backpack, I heard footsteps on the stairs. It was my mom, her eyes red, as if she were about to cry. "Peter, please," she said, entering the room without asking. "Don't do this. We're your family. You can't just leave like this. Let's talk. We can fix this." "There's nothing to fix," I replied without looking at her. "You made it clear who you are. It was always Nicholas. Always. When I needed help with college, you turned your backs on me. When I wanted to start a business, you told me it wasn't worth it. But now that I have money, suddenly I'm important." "No, Mom, it's over." I left the room, went down the stairs, and walked through the living room without looking at Nicholas or my dad. I heard my mom shouting at me from upstairs, saying I was ungrateful, that I couldn't treat them like this. Nicholas also shouted something, but I didn't stop to listen. I opened the front door and walked out, feeling the fresh air on my face. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I could breathe. The days passed, and the wait for the lottery money felt eternal. Every morning I checked my bank account, hoping to see the deposit. In the meantime, I settled into my new home. I bought a mattress, a small table, and some basic things. I didn't need more. For the first time, I felt I had a space that was mine, where no one could tell me what to do or how to live. And then one day, an email arrived from the lottery, confirming that the deposit had been processed. I checked my account, and there it was, numbered with more zeros than I had ever seen. I stared at the screen, feeling a mix of relief and excitement. I had done it. I was free. The first thing I did was pay off my student debt. Seeing that balance at zero was like lifting a mountain off my shoulders. Then I bought a few things I had always wanted: a good TV, a comfortable sofa, a new laptop. Nothing extravagant, just things that made my life easier. I didn't want to draw attention. I didn't want anyone to know I was a millionaire. I had heard stories of lottery winners who ended up losing everything by spending without control, and I wasn't going to be one of them. But my parents and Nicholas didn't give up. A few days after I moved out, I received a call from my mom. I didn't answer, but she left a voicemail. "Peter, please, we need to talk. Nicholas's business is about to close. If we don't get money, it's going to go bankrupt. You have the means to help him. Don't turn your back on us." I listened to the message and deleted it. Then a message came from Nicholas. "Bro, don't be like that. I know you're upset, but I'm your family. Help me. I'm begging you." I ignored that too. A week later, my dad called me. This time, I answered, more out of curiosity than a desire to talk. "Peter," he said, in a tone that tried to sound conciliatory, "I know things got out of hand, but you can't leave your brother out on the street. His business is all he has. If you don't help him, he's going to lose everything." "And what about me, Dad?" I replied. "What about everything I lost because of you? The years I worked to exhaustion, the times you humiliated me, made me feel less." "No, Dad, Nicholas had his chance and he blew it. Now it's his turn to face the consequences." "You're ungrateful," he shouted before hanging up. I wasn't surprised. It was the same old story. If I didn't do what they wanted, I was the bad guy. But this time, I didn't care. I was done seeking their approval. I decided to cut contact with them. I blocked their numbers and deleted their messages. It wasn't easy. A part of me still felt the weight of the guilt they tried to place on me. But I remembered their words, their actions, and I knew I was doing the right thing. I owed them nothing. Today, I walk around my apartment, look out the window, and feel something new. Freedom. It's not just the money, it's knowing that I don't need their approval, that I am enough. The rage I felt has turned into peace. They bet on Nicholas and lost. I bet on myself and won. There's no turning back.